What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some wide receiver terminology that all of you should learn. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you are a wide receiver and you would like a 3-month wide receiver specific gym workout schedule to follow, check out that very first link in the description below for our 12-week wide receiver gym workout plan. It's over 200 plus wide receiver gym exercise. We map out the exact sets and reps to do and examples of each exercise. So if you guys want to become a better wide receiver overall, check out that very first link in the description below. Let's get started with this video. So the first term that I want to go over is something called getting skinny. So if you've maybe heard myself say this, you've heard other wide receiver coaches say this, maybe your coach at school, getting skinny essentially means running tight to a DB. So this is a bad example of getting skinny. If I was coaching up this wide receiver in this rep live, I would tell him that, hey, you need to do a better job getting skinny and getting essentially hip to hip with the DB. So let's talk about what that is. So he comes off the ball. He's running this like deep 10-yard out. This DB's sitting at 5 yards inside shade, like catch technique. So he did not get skinny on this. He took a very, very wide angle off of his release. That is not getting skinny. Getting skinny would be attacking this DB's toes, attacking his leverage to the inside, and you getting straight upfield, getting vertical, getting like skinny on, like, think of it like this. When you guys run like a skinny post, you guys aren't running this post where you're cutting hard across the field. You're staying like skinny. You're staying upfield, if you will. Getting skinny essentially means getting vertical and getting upfield. So this wide receiver, his thought process here is, okay, I have a 10-yard out. I'm going to close the space with this DB. I'm going to attack him. I'm going to threaten him to his leverage because pre-snap, this DB is inside leverage. He's trying to take away the inside, force everything to the outside. So our thought process is, okay, let's close the space. Let's attack him inside, and then let's push up fade. We give the quarterback space to the outside by getting skinny. But when he attacks him and he gives him a move, he runs away, right? And when you run away, that's not getting skinny. He reroutes us to the sideline. He's closing down the amount of space that I have by rerouting me to the sideline and forcing me to the outside. We got lucky here that this DB didn't play this thing well, but if this DB was right on our hip with the sideline here, that is a very, very easy play for him and a hard throw for the quarterback. So getting skinny can only help us. So let's talk about, again, why would you want to get skinny, right? Because when you get skinny and you push up vertical, like just straight up field, you get right by hip to hip with the DB. That is a great way to get this DB's hips to open up, right? So if you have to run an outside breaking route and there's and we're going to show a positive example of this in a second. I'm not just going to show the negative example. So if we get this DB's hips to open up and you have to break on an out route and you could sell it, you could run hard, you're right by his hip and you put the brakes on, you got a lot of space to the outside and it's harder for a DB to make a play when his hips are open up. Now, another reason you want to get skinny is because that can help us stack. Now, what does stack mean? We're going to be talking about that and showing examples of this as this video goes on. If you guys aren't familiar with the term restack, but restack is essentially where you take like an outside release or an inside release and you get directly over the top of the DB where he is trailing your back hip. Now, it's tough to do that without getting skinny. If you try to run away and then try to restack, your route's taking too long. You're wasting too much time. Now, another reason, the last reason you want to get skinny is because think about it like this. If you have this inside shade press look or inside shade catch technique, off man, and let's say you have to run an inside breaking route. Let's say this wide receiver had to run a post. You would attack this DB, you would close the space, and you would take the same exact outside release, right? So he would attack him. He wouldn't force the inside release because this DB is not going to give that up. If he's inside leverage, his goal is to protect the inside. Do not give up the inside route. So if we try to force it, he's going to get hands on me and reroute me way across the field inside because that's his sole responsibility. So you got to get comfortable taking an outside release even with an inside breaking route. So the reason why you want to get skinny on that is because if you push up vertical and you're getting skinny, you're running tight to this DB and we're hip to hip at the break point, if you can't restack with him, what can you do? Because you're so close to him, you could take your inside hand and put it on the back of his shoulder, back of his hip, and slip underneath and run your dig, run your post. They call that a throw-by move. I can't do that if I'm running, like imagine running this far away and the DB's here and you're trying to slip under him. That DB's got way too much space to be able to recover. So fellas, you have to make sure on every single route where it's against press coverage, where it's against 5-yard off press coverage, if you will, or catch technique, I should say, and your route is past that depth, you have to get skinny on the break. So let's play this again full speed. So again, this is a negative example. We do not want to go that wide. We're going to show a positive example now. So what Terry McLaurin's going to be doing here is this DB's like lined up head up. What he's doing is he's giving a move to the outside, moving the DB to the outside and taking the inside release on a post. Now, again, if you're taking an inside release on a post route, it's very, very similar as to when he took that outside release on the out route in the last example. You don't want to go super wide. You want to get skinny so we could get the DB to flip his hips, number one. But number two, so we don't run into trouble, right? If you're running that out route and you just run wide, you're running right to the sideline. That's where the DB wants you to go. And then if you just take off and you have an inside release on an inside route and you just run away from him, you're running straight to a safety most likely, or you're running into other receivers on the play. You're screwing up spacing on the play by simply not getting skinny. So let's play this full speed and let's talk about it. So he attacks outside for a step, but see how he's getting back vertical. He's getting into the DB's hip. He's using his upper body. He's using his leverage to get separation on this thing. That is what you want to try to do. You see, he very easily could have given this move and then just kept running to the inside. But that's not realistic, guys. If he's running like, let's say, for example, he's running a dig, and let's say his dig is at 10 to 12 yards. That's 10 to 12. And let's say the slot receiver's running a dig at like 8 to 10. If you take this really far stem to the inside and you break, you're right on top of the dig from the slot, guys. That's not good spacing on the play. You have to get skinny or get vertical, for lack of a better term, right? So again, now another reason on this type of play, even when it's an outside release on an outside breaking route, inside release on an inside breaking route, you want to get skinny and you want to get hip to hip with him. So maybe you could use your body and lean into him a little bit. They call that like a chicken wing method, where you lean into this DB with your upper body and you almost like push off of him without getting called for a push-off. You get your shoulder, you get your hip, you get your body weight leaning into him. So when you make this hard cut right here, like he does, you could kind of get a little bit of a push without getting called for a push-off, without extending your arm and pushing him in the back. So that's another reason why. So getting skinny will open up the DB's hips. It gives you more room on the play, it keeps you away from the sideline, other defenders, and it sets up that restack, throw by, or chicken wing move. Let's play this again full speed one more time. Again, great example of McLaurin here getting skinny, getting his hips vertical so we get as much separation as possible and as much spacing as possible. So now, we talked about being able to restack, right? So restack is another term that I think all wide receivers need to know because, again, it applies, and that is our goal, versus every single type of man-to-man coverage, except for maybe like off-man coverage, right? But if you got catch man, press man, soft press, you guys have to stack. That should be our goal, because essentially when you stack, you have kind of like I call it like a two-way route, if you will. Obviously you only have one route, but I'm going to show this example and explain what I mean here. So he has inside shade press and he's going to be running this dig route. So it's important here that, again, we attack him to the inside, we get him to hold his leverage, we take the outside release. Got to get skinny. Like we said, getting skinny helps us with being able to restack, and the goal is to get this DB trailing his back hip. So let's watch what he does here. So he attacks him, again, gets skinny, gets hip to hip, gets over the top of the DB, and is able to use a rocker step to create some space. So that's what we want to do, fellas. You close the space, you eat up the cushion. Again, he doesn't run away from him and then try to run the dig, because that DB is going to have too much space. And then when you try to break back to the dig, he is going to be right there. So he gets hip to hip with this guy. He's trying to get stacked. He's trying to get skinny. He's getting this DB to trail behind his back hip so he could use this move, give a hard fake to the outside, so like he's running an out route, and then he has plenty of space over the middle. So now, one other thing I want to point out here too, fellas, everybody's hesitant about getting skinny or restacking because they're thinking is, well, coach, what if I close space and I attack him and I try to get skinny and this DB gets hands on me? Guys, we want him to get hands on us, but also we need to have a plan if he does get hands on us. Because think about this, with the hand technique off the line, so many wide receivers make it too complicated. You know, they work the different movements, the swat, the dip, the swat, the shoot over, and all that's great. And building that muscle memory is awesome. And that's exactly what you want to do. But with your release, I think the feet are more important because the feet can set up the hands and make the hands a lot easier. So he comes off the ball and he attacks this DB inside, your plan should be what hand of his, because we already know what release we want to take based on his pre-snap look. He's inside shade. I have to run an inside route like a dig. My goal is I'm going to take an outside release. I'm going to attack him inside, take the outside release. So the only hand that can prevent your outside release is this DB's outside hand, his right hand. If he recovers and he shoots this left hand and he gets on you, so what? That you still got off the ball. You got off the press and you maintain timing with your quarterback. The goal of the DB's press is to get hands and disrupt the timing. His goal is not to jam you off the line and embarrass you. His goal is to disrupt timing and spacing. So if we know the only hand possible that can do that is the outside hand, I'm good. I want to close the space. I want to attack him, and that should be my plan of action. Beat the outside hand. Don't even worry about this hand yet. So that's what you got to have a plan to do. And you see how he's swatting. And again, there's his recovery hand, but is Des Bryant off the press? Absolutely. And when you're off the press and you're moving downfield and he's trying to recover, you could just shrug the hand, fight the hand off. And when we get him downfield and we're able to stack and he has got no hands on me, he is in no man's land. So fellas, do not be afraid of the hand contact. Know what hand we have to beat to get off the line, and let's attack. Let's work to stack and work to get skinny. So that's what restacking means, getting that DB to trail your back hip. It kind of ties into getting skinny, because getting skinny is what helps us restack over the top. So now, this is another example of a term called stepping on the DB's toes. Okay, so stepping on a DB's toes can be used, honestly, like I would say in a lot of different scenarios. You could use it when the DB's in off coverage, zone coverage, press coverage, but this is a good example because I think this really allows you to see what it means by stepping on the DB's toes. Now, does it mean literally stepping on his feet? No, but I mean, if we can, great, right? I mean, it's not a flag. I don't think that would be a flag, but you want to try to get as close as you can possible to the DB. So this DB's playing like he's shaded a little bit to the outside, and Jamar Chase is going to be running this like 10-yard deep out, right? So what we'd want to do is we're going to obviously, because this DB's outside shade, we're not going to force the outside release. He's just going to get hands. He's going to force me to the sideline, and I'm not going to have any space on my out route. So what I would want to do is I would want to close the space with this DB, step on his toes, aka attack his leverage, right? So his leverage is outside. I want to attack his leverage and step onto his toes, because that's the best way to hold him to his leverage. So I could take an inside release. You have to keep him honest, and stepping on his toes and attacking his leverage is a good way to do that. So let's watch what Chase does here. He comes off the ball, steps on his toes. That's just fancy for closing the distance with the DB, and then he's able to swap by and create some separation. This is another example of stepping on the DB's toes. He's inside shade. Wide receiver is going to be running a fade ball to the back corner of the end zone. So you would want to attack his leverage inside, step on his toes, aka close the distance. All those things kind of mean the same thing. Attack leverage, step on his toes, close the distance, close the space. All of that means the same thing. So watch what he does here. Closes the space, stepping on his toes, gives him a move, and again, keeps the DB honest inside to give us more room to the outside. Same thing with Jamar Chase. He attacks his leverage, keeps the DB honest to the outside leverage, so he has space to take his inside release, self-fade, get the DB to flip his hips, and he's got room to the sideline. So fellas, that's what that means. How you would use this against maybe off coverage. Like let's say this wasn't the goal line for a second and the DB was like 10 yards off right in front of you and you had to run that 10-yard out, you would want to step on his toes all the way until the break point, give him a move, and then go. Again, closing the distance, attacking his leverage, stepping on his toes. All of those means fairly similar things, just different ways to say it, and you want to know those different ways just in case a coach you come across might have that type of terminology. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I hope this video helped you out. I hope it taught you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you are a wide receiver and would like a 3-month daily wide receiver gym workout schedule, everything wide receivers need to be doing in the gym for speed, explosiveness, power, balance, everything, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to get you on that, fellas. I'll see you guys next time.